Well, Patrick Cook here, so thank you for joining me on this live stream. What I want to do today is talk about the various light sources that you have in the Mandelbulb 3D application. Now, we're going to be focusing on this area right in here, lighting. All right, and these, matter of fact, let's do it this way. All right, so these are what they call light sources. Okay, now you have 6 of them that you can choose from. Now each one of them has the ability to select a global light, all right, or a positional light, or a light map. Okay, so you can actually assign up to 6 light sources per fractal scene. All right, and each one of those light sources can be one of the 3, a global light, a positional light, or a light map. Okay, now just to kind of get used to the interface a little bit. Matter of fact, let's make this a little bit bigger for you to be able to see. Okay, so here's my 6 light sources. Now, in order to enable a light source, it needs to be on. All right, each one of these light source tabs has an on checkbox. All right, light 3, on, light 3, on or off, that sort of thing. All right, all the way up to 6. Now, the convention is that when you select a light source tab, whatever light source type that you select, that's what is assigned to that light source tab. All right, so in order to select a particular light source, you would click, you'd turn it on, and then you would click the global light if you wanted global light, a positional light if you wanted positional, or a light map. All right, now, this is a good time for me to explain what these different light sources do within the Mandelbulb 3D software. The global light is a light source where the light actually reflects off of the surface of the fractal based upon the position of the or I should say maybe the angle of the fractal surface. Now, a positional light will actually be a particular light source, a kind of a pinpoint. Think of a lamp, all right, and the light will emanate from that point, and it has a relatively narrow beam, if you will. All right, now in Mandelbulb, we can't control the beam, all right, of a positional light source. We can control the intensity, we can control the position, but we can't control the beam, all right, or how it fans out. Now back to the global light. A global light, you can think of it as sunlight, all right. The sunlight is everywhere. There is no particular light source per se, although there is, but we don't think of global light in Mandelbulb as a particular source, a point. It's sort of the light that's everywhere. All right. Now the light map, you can think of an image that is wrapped around the fractal object. All right. Now this map is actually an image, a JPEG image or PNG image that will have various shades of intensity in the map or in the image that will allow more or less light through. All right. So think of a globe surrounding the fractal object that where light will come in through the lighter areas of the map, and light is diminished in the darker areas of the map. Okay, now I'm going to demonstrate all of these. All right, now let's go back. Let's get the scene set up here. I'm on light source number 1, and it's turned on. Now this checkbox right here is to enable hard shadows. I'm going to turn that off for purposes of demonstration. This icon will allow you to pick the color of the light. I like to think of it as more as the tint of the light. Okay, we'll get back to that. This up-down control will select your intensity. Now we're talking about a global light right now because that's what I have selected. I have a global light tab is selected. All right. The diffuse. This is different methods of performing diffuse lighting. Diffuse lighting is light that emanates from the fractal surface. Okay. Ambient light, for instance, is light that is in the atmosphere, whereas diffuse lighting is light that actually reflects off of the fractal surface. Specular is another. You can actually control the amount of specular, which is basically highlighting, and you can control the intensity of the highlighting or the specular reflection off of the surface of the bulb, the Mandelbulb, the fractal object. Okay, now that was just a quick overview to get us started here. Now let's do this. I have light source number 1. It's turned on. Hard shadows is turned off because we don't need it here. Obviously, I have picked the global light. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here that this is actually global light. And I'm going to do that by turning off the global light. All right, so that light source is turned off now. All right, that's key. All right, and now I'm going to go over here to the ambient, and I'm going to turn the ambient all the way off. Now we see here that I actually have no light that is being reflected off of the fractal object. But I still have a lot of background light. So let's do this. Let's go over to the fog. Let's knock this far offset down. Let's knock that down. And let's kind of get that. There we go. Okay. So I'm just playing with this fog here to eliminate as much of the light in the scene as possible, just to get us started. All right, now, if we go back to our light source number 1, we're on global light, turn that back on. Now we can see here that my light source, my global light source, is actually flooding the scene with light, and obviously the fractal object is reflecting that light back to the camera. Okay? So that's global light. And, I've turned off the ambient light. I've turned off all the ambient light off. Ambient light is light that's in the atmosphere. It's floating around. You can think of ambient light as really very interactive with fog. Okay? Where the fog is dispersing the light and scattering it everywhere. I turned that off. All right, for demonstration purposes. Let's turn our global light back on. Now, as I had explained before, I can actually change the color. Just do something crazy. I'm going to change it to red. So I have changed the source of the global light to a red color. I don't know if you ever want to do this for real or not, but this demonstrates that you can change the color of the global light source. All right, now let's just play around with the intensity. All right, I'm really cranking the intensity up pretty high. There, it's very, very low. Okay. All right. So I have intensity control. I also have different methods of for the Mandelbulb application to calculate how this global light behaves. All right, and you'll notice here, I'll tell you what, let's, it's hard to demonstrate it with that. Let's, I don't know, let's pick a yellow. All right, now if I come up here and I choose different diffuse calculations, you'll notice here that the lighting is changing. All right. Basically, as I move down this list here, the behavior of the light is different. All right, COS, cosine, will give me more of a focused, kind of a tighter distribution of the light. And then as I move down this list here, my light source behavior changes. It spreads out, it becomes more intense. I like to think of these as an artistic approach, and I typically will stay right in the cos just to begin with, and then I get my composition, get the lighting the way I want it, and then I'll go in here and I will experiment with these. Okay? The specular, I like to leave it right about in the midpoint, all right, because I may not want a whole lot of specular. In other words, I may not want to increase the bright areas, the highlights of my scene just yet. And I may not want to do that with the global light, but I might want to do that with the positional light. All right. All right, so let's just kind of get that. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now, obviously, in a real world scenario, I would pay attention to the background as well, and keep in mind too that a Mandelbulb scene is not necessarily just one object like this. I'm only doing this for demonstration purposes. But you can get some very complex fractal scenes, and your lighting can actually be quite important to the whole composition of your fractal scene. But for purposes of discussion, now let's go back over to our light source, and just for demonstration, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go to light source number 2. And now, as I had explained before, the light source type that you're using is defined by which tab you click here. I'm going to make a positional light. Now, keep in mind that a positional light is a more of a concentrated light source, a point, if you will, and that light emanates out, and the fractal scene, the fractal object, will react to that light based upon the positional light's location and the angle at which the light will strike the surface, as opposed to global, where global is more in the environment. Positional light is pretty located. So let's turn on this positional light. I don't need the hard shadows here in this case. Now I have a visible, this is a little disc that is made visible in the scene. 0, the disc is invisible, and 4, the disc is as large as it can be. All right, so I'm going to turn that disc on so that we can see where that positional light is. Now there's a little button right here called mid. And what that does is that allows you to go to the fractal surface and pick a point at which the light will be, the light point, the positional light will be placed in the scene. Now, let's do it. So if I click on mid, then I go over to the fractal. Now I click on the fractal, I left click the mouse. The positional light is now positioned in the X, the Y, and the Z location relevant to that fractal object. A little tip here, if you click on mid and then you click off of a fractal object, the light is placed there. Let's see, I don't know if you can see it. Let's do it again. Let's go mid. Let's place it right there. You see that little dot right there? The light was actually placed in the scene, but because I didn't actually have a point, a midpoint on the fractal surface, that point was positioned way off on the z-axis. So typically you're going to use mid and you're going to click on a fractal surface. Otherwise your light is going to be so off on the z-axis that its illumination doesn't even make it to the camera. All right, so I have a positional light now in light slot number 2. All right, positional. Now, I can, with the X-pos, Y-pos, and Z-pos, position, POS means position, I can actually locate where that point of light will be located. All right, the X is going to give me left and right, the Y is going to give me up and down, and the Z is going to give me forward and back relevant to the camera. All right. Now let's just pay it. Let's play with the Z position for a moment here. All right. You notice that here's my little disc, and I can prove that by turning it off. I'm going to turn that disc off. I am going to move this so that you can see it better. Keep in mind that all of this whole panel here, I'm magnifying it for your benefit. Okay. All right. This is the actual panel. I'm magnifying it for your benefit. All right. So positional light. Let's look at the Z position. All right. Now I turned that disc off because I wanted to show you that the disc here is actually visible to indicate where that point of light is, that positional light. All right. Now I'm moving this. All right. Now what I'm doing is I'm moving the positional light backward, away from me, away from the camera. Now it comes to a point where that positional light is actually behind the fractal, as I think that pretty much demonstrates. Okay. Now the positional light is in front of the fractal. All right. So you can see where you can do some pretty interesting things, including getting your positional light inside the fractal object. So let's just, there we go. Matter of fact, let's put that all the way down. So now the fractal is like deep inside, I'm sorry, the positional light is deep inside the fractal. And you can see here how the positional light is actually trying to emanate. Now, a positional light will emit its light in all directions from it. In the case of Mandelbulb, we don't have a light point that cones out. We can't position the direction of the positional light like you can with other graphical applications. Our light is a light point that emanates its light from all directions simultaneously. Now that's actually good, because you can see here that I could utilize this positional light to actually go inside the fractal and illuminate it. And what if I was to come over here with the intensity? All right. Now check this out. You see my global light in light source position number 1 is turned off. And the only light in this scene is actually coming from inside my fractal object. So you can see how with multiple light sources, you can kind of play around with this and make some very interesting configurations. Let's say I was to, let's make this positional light red. Let's go back, well, let's tune that down. It's a bit much. All right. Now let's go back to my global light and turn it on. See what happens. Okay, that's interesting. So here's, you can see my internal positional light, and I can prove that by turning the positional light off. On, off, on, off. Okay? Now, so what I've done is I'm using global light, all right, to illuminate the surface. All right, you can't put a global light inside of an object. It's going to be relevant to the fractal object itself. And then I'm using this positional light to light the interior. And that's a very interesting effect. So now I have two light sources running at the same time. And you noticed, and you probably saw that my positions are independent of the other. Here's my global light source. I'm moving the Y angle, the up and down. All right, and here's my X angle, something like that. Okay, or here I can make the light source 12 o'clock high, if you will. All right, so that's a configuration right there with a global light source and a positional light source that I have used to highlight various aspects of my fractal object. Let's throw another one in there. So I can go to light source number 3. I need to turn that on, obviously, and I'm going to turn off the hard shadows because I just don't need them here. All right. So now I have the positional light source that is white. Let's do something interesting. Let's make it kind of a dark blue. All right. Well, that's not what I want. So I'm going to position this light source. I'm going to turn the disk on so I can see where it is. And now I'm going to now, good. I made the mistake. What I did is I went to light source number 3, I turned it on, and I overlooked that I had to actually select the positional light tab. Just in my mind, I kind of assumed I want positional light, and there it is. Well, that's a global light because the global light is selected. And it's kind of unconventional to actually select, in this case, a function only based upon the tab selected. You would think that each one of these would have an on-off switch, independent of the actual source, but they don't. All right, so I got myself straightened out again. There's my positional light. Now I need to find that blue guy. All right, here's my disk. I'm going to use the mid, and I'm going to click it right there on the fractal. So now I actually have a highlight situation. All right, so I've got one global light, one positional light deep inside the fractal, and another positional light that's outside of the fractal. All right. I could keep going. I could turn that one on. Positional light. Let's just make this red so that we see it. Mid. Click on the fractal. There we go. And you can see how easy it is to create a positional light. So I have a configuration now of a global light and 3 positional lights, 2 on the outside of the bulb and 1 on the inside. Okay? All right, so that's pretty easy, and I could keep going. I've got 2 more light source slots that I could use. Now, in a real-world scenario where I'm actually creating something, what I would tend to do is I'd start with my first light source, and in this particular case, it's global. Doesn't have to be. I could put a positional light here just as easily as a global light. But I usually start with my first light source. When I get it the way I like it, then I'll turn my attention to the second light source, turn it on, compose for that. I might go back and modify the first light source depending upon what I'm trying to achieve. Okay. I kind of like to think of these light sources, Li.1.2.3. I tend to think of them as layers. So this is layer 1 of the light source, and layer 2 and layer 3. That's the Li does not mean layer. It means light, L-I-T, light. All right. But I tend to think of them as layers. Okay. Now each of the layers, all right, each of the light source layers have these controls which are independent from the others, all right, and they also have their own type of position. All right, so that's a global source. This is the controls for the positional light. All right, you notice here that the global source does not have a Z position. It only has the Y angle, the Y angle and the X angle. Y, X, that's all it has. The positional light they don't have angles. They have positions. They have X position, Y position, and Z position. All right? And they don't have the cone. They don't have the direction. All right? Well, that's pretty interesting. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, so let's do this. I think we have a pretty good idea how to be able to set up multiple light sources. All right. And you can have a pretty good time. Now, obviously, this is a bulb. You're probably not going to do something like this. You're going to be much more sophisticated in your fractal scene. As a matter of fact, we'll try that in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about a light map. I'm going to turn all these off just to kind of give us a good place to start. Now, I'm going to come over here to light source number 6. I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to make that a light map. Now, you notice here that I don't have to have anything assigned in any of these other light source layers, if you will. I don't have to have any of these. I can put together a whole scene only using Li source number 6. All right. So you can think of the layers. They don't have to be layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can have the entire scene can be illuminated by 6 or 4 or 3 or whatever you want. I'm going to make that a light map. Now, what a light map is it's an image that has been specially prepared, and that image has it has patterns, and those patterns will allow more or less light through the image. White areas will allow more light through. Darker areas will allow less light through. So you have basically a pattern of light that is cast onto the fractal object. All right, now think of the fractal object, and the light map is virtually wrapped around all 360 degrees of this fractal object. All right, the map. Okay. All right, and then light. This is a very simplistic way of describing it, but light will be allowed through this map, this virtual globe. More light in areas of the map that are lighter, less light reaching the Mandelbulb surface in areas of the map that are darker. All right, so I have here a bunch of maps that came installed with the Mandelbulb application, and this up-down selector will select the different maps. Now, creating maps is certainly doable by you, but that's beyond the scope of this particular live stream. These maps came with Mandelbulb installation, so you have, what, like 15 of them to choose from. You can make more, but that's beyond the scope of this live stream. All right, let's just pick something here. Let's pick something interesting. Okay. All right, so here's a map. All right. Now, if we can kind of, let's just see if I can magnify that a bit better for you. All right. You'll notice here that part of this map, the white strip at the top, that's going to allow more light through this virtual globe wrapping of the map. And the dark areas are going to allow less through. Okay? So I've applied a map to this particular fractal, and this is the outcome that we get. Now, I do have everything turned off. By the way, this little dot right here, little dot, that indicates that that light source, that layer, has been turned on. I can prove that by watch the dot go away. Okay? So I can just visually see, all right, that the light source layer is turned on or off, just visually because of the dot. Okay. Oh, we got a message from a message from Carl M00. He says, "Hello, Patrick. Thank you so much!" Exclamation point. You are welcome. I appreciate you letting me know that. Thank you. All right, so I've applied a map to this particular fractal surface. Now, the fractal surface itself is very, very busy. So it's kind of hard to see how this map is impacting. So let's do this. Let's change that. And I'm going to go over to the formulas. And I'm going to change this. Come on. It used to be integer power. This is how Mandelbulb first starts up. I'm going to change that to Amazing Box, because Amazing Box will give us a whole bunch of very flat surfaces. All right, now that's not going to work, so let's change that scale. Oh, it's a little bit better. Now I'm going to use the navigator. Come on. All right, and I'm going to get way in on that. All right. Now, you'll notice here, all right, it's probably an oversight in design, but I'm not getting a whole lot of light here because the navigator does not utilize light maps or positional lights in the navigator. So what I'm going to do is come back over here to the lighting. I'm going to go to my light source number 1, turn that on, go back over my navigator, pull that back in. Now I can see what I'm doing. I don't really know if that's a flaw or not, but that's the way it is. One of the reasons why I begin with a global light when I'm constructing my scene so that I can see what I'm doing in the navigator. Okay, so let's get way in on this guy here, and what I'm looking for is a kind of a flat surface. Let's see if I can find a kind of a flat surface. I'm just looking around. Oh, that might be interesting. Okay. Let's see if we can, what we can do with this right here. Just kind of walking in on it. Because what I want to do here is I want to find something where I can actually put a light map on. All right. So I think that will probably work out pretty good. And now I'm going to push that back to main. I don't need the navigator, so we'll turn that off. So I got to calculate again. All right, so now I'm going to turn light source number 1 off. Go back over to my light map, and let's see the impact that light maps have. Now I'm going to turn this light map off. I don't need the hard shadows. Turn that off. Okay, turn it back on. Now, I have a light map that's being applied to this fractal surface. And you can see here, you can see that band right there, right in here. See that band? All right, this guy right here. See that band? All right. That's actually the white area of this map. All right. All right, so all right, so now with these maps, I have the ability to rotate the map. Again, now, here's your fractal object. The map is 360 degrees wrapped around it, virtually, inside the math. Now, I can rotate this map in the X direction. All right, you see the effect that it's having on my fractal. You can see the band here is moving up and down. That band is right in here and right here. All right, here I can rotate it in the Y direction. And here I can rotate it in the Z direction. All right, now in this particular case, Z is not necessarily front and back to the camera. Z could very much well be, depending upon where you're positioned, you're in the scene. Z could actually mean a rotate, but you are rotating. You're not moving the map. You're rotating the map. You're not moving it in and out. You're rotating. As a matter of fact, there are no provisions for you to make the map bigger or smaller or closer to the fractal or further away. You rotate it. So let's pick a different one. Here we go. This is interesting. All right, so I have now here's my light map. All right, and you see here that I'm rotating it. And here I'm rotating it in the Y direction and rotating in the Z direction. So you can see the kind of effect that you can get. Now that map, you notice this pattern here. Well, it's kind of hard to see, isn't it? All right, so you'll notice that this pattern, let's see if we can, here we go. That pattern, so the white areas allow more light in, the dark areas block more light. They don't block light entirely, but now you can see where this is the dark area of the map. This is the white area of the map. So the light maps can be very, very interesting artistically. I can combine the different types of sources with a light map. I'm going to keep light map position number 6 turned on. I'm going to come over here to my internal. Remember I had made that fractal deep down, the light source deep down inside. I'm going to turn that back on. All right, I'm going to use the mid, and I'm going to find a point. Let's drop it way down in there. All right, now it's very bright because it's really close to the camera. So I'm going to change that light position. Let's do that mid again. Let's do the mid. Let's do the mid again. Okay. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to turn off this light map so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to, this is a tough one. The brightness of this positional light is so intense. All right, try that again. Boy, that's a tough one. All right, let's try it again. Let's turn this on, see if I can get a midpoint in this fractal. That one's being a tough one. I can see the fractal here, but what's happening is that this red light is so intense, and it's outside. It's outside of my fractal. My fractal is here. This positional light is out here, and it's blinding me, so I can't see anything. So this is a very interesting scenario here. Let's see if we can get this fixed here. I'm going to turn on my global light. I went back over to position number 1, global light. Go back to position number 2, positional light. Turn it on, and let's see. Now I can actually, because I turned that global light on in light position number 1, I can see the fractal now, and I have a much better chance of being able to get this positional light positioned. All right, I'm trying to. All right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back over to the navigator. Yeah, I know what the problem is. I am so close to that fractal. I am so close to it that positional light is just having a very difficult time being placed. All right, so let's get back to my light number position. Turned on. Let's reduce this color here. This is crazy. Make sure, calculate it, make sure it's right. Let's see if we can get that positional light in there. My disc is on. All right. Well, that is very interesting, folks. I have got this positional light. Let's see if we can fix this, though. I'm turning that positional light off, and I'm going to come over here and pick light position number 3, turn that on, make that positional. Oh, there's my intensity. The intensity is very low. So I think the other one, I had the intensity up so high. So let's see if we can get this. You know what I think we got here? I think that the problem is that I am so close on that fractal that it's having a very difficult time positioning that light. All right, I just backed out. I just backed away the camera from the fractal. Now let's see if I can get that positional light mid. Oh, yeah, okay, all right. All right, I'm pretty convinced that what's going on here is that this fractal scene is so complex that I can't get a midpoint. Or I can't get a midpoint. So here's my mid, and I should be able to click on that, and that should set my settings here. But Mandelbulb can't find the midpoint because the fractal scene is so vast. It can't find the midpoint. It can't find the X and the Y and the Z position, so it doesn't know where to place my positional light. As opposed to the other bulb that I had, that was easy to find the bulb surface. In this particular case, this is having a very difficult time actually finding the fractal surface. You see, no matter what I do, I can't quite get that midpoint. Now, this kind of points out an interesting problem here, because I don't have any type of numeric control over the X position, the Y position, or the Z position. I can only get that in the fractal surface by using the mid function, and the mid function is failing for me. Let's just see whether or not, let's see if I can, yeah, this fractal is so intense. Let's try that. Get that back to main, recalculate it so I can see what I got. Come back over to light number 3, positional. We'll see if I can get a mid on this. No, it still can't get a mid. All right. All right. So a little shortcoming. All right. In some fractal scenes, evidently, when they're so large, Mandelbulb can't grab that midpoint. All right. So let's move on. All right. Now, let's go back to my bulb. What was that? Integer power. Let's see. There we go. All right. So this is how. I don't need all these lights turned on like that. Turn that off. All right. Now keep in mind that I had turned all my ambient off. All right. So I need here. That was my ambient. Get that calculated. Let's get over to the navigator. Let's pull that in. Yeah. So I don't even, I'm completely off of the bulb entirely. So I need to find that bulb. I'm going to come over here, reset the position, see if I can, I'm trying to find the bulb again. I had lost the bulb. What I had done is I was in Amazing Box and I switched the formula. And so the bulb was there. It was just outside my camera view. All right, so there's my bulb back again. I used the reset here on position. All right, so let's get back to our lighting. So here is my global light. Now, let's go back over there and prove whether or not we actually uncovered an issue. I'm going to turn this positional light on, turn that back on, and I'm going to do the mid and click on that. Mid, click. Oh, that's very interesting. All right. Probably because my intensity. All right. That's interesting. Okay. So the light map works fine, but the positional light can't seem to get a mid. There she is. Okay. So now, all right. So now with this particular bulb, Mandelbulb object, fractal object, Mandelbulb was actually able to grab a mid, a point, an XYZ point in the scene in which it could give me a position. All right? A little shortcoming, but it is what it is. All right. So let's see if we can kind of get our head around this, kind of summarize this multiple light source capability. All right. So as I had shown, I'm actually able to use a light map at the same time as to use a positional light, at the same time as being able to use a global light. Global light, I can actually change the X and the Y position, I'm sorry, angle of that light source, and that's done with these controls. All right, with the positional light, let's get this turned on here so you can see it better. Okay, with the positional light, I'm actually able to control the position in the Y and the X and the Z position. Okay. All right, but as we discovered here, the only way you're going to get a point where a default, a starting point, is to use the mid. All right, and we proved that if you click off of the fractal surface, your point is way, way, way out away from the camera on the Z-axis. But if I put mid and I get it on the fractal, we're fine. And that other scene that I had with Mandelbox, Mandelbulb couldn't locate where the fractal was with the mid, and so I was unable to get a positional light in that particular scene. There's ways to fix that. I could change the scale and I could get it bigger and better, and probably be able to get that, be able to capture a midpoint. But I can't enter these in manually. All right. So the light map over here on 6, All right, that's a situation where you have the bulb and that's wrapped with an image that's wrapped around it. All right, where white or lighter areas of the map will allow light through to hit the fractal surface. Darker areas of the map will inhibit light, casting kind of a darker, less light on the fractal itself. And I can rotate that map around the fractal object, but I can't make it any closer or further away. So in the case of Mandelbulb, I actually have 6 light sources that I can define. I don't have to define all of them in order. I don't have to have 1, 2, 3. I could have 4 and 5 if I wanted to. There's no particular order. I like to think of them as layers of lighting, right? Because the lighting ultimately is all combined into the same scene as we're seeing right here now. All right, that's 3 lights. The dot indicates that those lights are turned on. All right, so I have 3 light types that are in that scene. All right, so I kind of think of them as being combined, layered, if you will. All right, each one of these light layers or light source positions can only have one type of light assigned to it, either a global, a positional, or a light map. All right, so that's actually a lot of good capability. Now, let's just kind of wrap this up by looking at the rest of this stuff here. So in relation to these light sources. Now, you notice here when I click these light sources, the only area that is moving or changing is right here. All right, this area, let's see, this area right in here, okay? This is the only area where the controls are changing, all right? You'll notice that all these controls, all down in here, they're stationary, they're not changing. And the reason for that is because all down in here, these are light-related controls that are global. Those controls will apply to all of the light sources. Let me see if I can prove it to you. All right, so light source number 1, let's come over here. Let's turn off the light map. We don't need it. I'm just trying to simplify the scene a little bit. All right, and okay, that's probably good. That's good enough. All right, so down here, all down and through here, all of these controls here. Let's make that bigger so you can see what we're doing here. All down in here, these are all global. All of these controls apply to all of and any of the light sources that you have defined. All right, now it's beyond the scope of this particular live stream to talk about all these, all right, but I just want you to know that all the controls below these tabs right here apply to all of the light sources. And typically what they do is the object, that's diffuse lighting, the type of coloring that's applied to the scene, all right, and how the coloring is distributed across the scene, all right, and gamma, gamma was down here, all right. They apply to all of the lighting. Here's ambient. If I change that, you'll notice here over on my picture here that the ambient is being applied to the scene, and I do have 2 light sources defined. Again, only proving that these ambient settings are global to the scene, global to all of the light sources that have been defined and set up. And fog applies to all of the light sources. All right, fog is global to all of the light sources. All right, so basically what I have just basically explained is that you can set up to 6 light sources, with each light source being one of 3 global, positional, or light map. And you can change the position of the particular light source. And then all of these light source layers also have controls that will affect the whole set of light assignments. All right, that's these down in here. All right? So don't think of this object panel as applying only to one particular light source. That panel applies to all of the assigned light sources once the light sources have all been combined. Okay? All right. All right. So I think that's. I think we're in pretty good shape here. I think you better understand the multiple light sources of the Mandelbulb application. The key to leveraging these multiple light sources and multiple light types, global, positional, light map, the whole idea is for you to be able to leverage lighting and the distribution of lighting, all right, in such a way that you can create very interesting fractal scenes. Sometimes the lighting actually is more important than the actual structure of the fractal itself. All right, and keep in mind here that that the lighting capabilities of the Mandelbulb go beyond the light types. All right, they go beyond the light types. Just real quick, not only do you have the global, the positional, and the light map as light sources, but you also have things down here, diffuse lighting and coloring. All right, and you have ambient. That's the light that's all in the atmosphere, all around. All right, and you actually have the depth of the ambient. That's how far in, just say you have a crevice, how far the ambient light will go into the crevice. So you have the depth of the ambient light. So this is ambient lighting in here. Down in here you have shadowing, all right, which is lighting, it's shading. And over here you also have fog, which is an atmospheric effect, and that fog can be colored, and it's a volumetric lighting. All right, and you also have a back picture that you can apply, but that's not really lighting. It will impact lighting, but it's not a lighting source. But that's beyond the scope of this live stream. Okay, so I hope that helps. Get your Mandelbulb 3D application fired up. Play with this stuff. Learn it. See whether or not you can come up with some interesting light source configurations. All right, get that positional light deep down into a fractal, or hide it down in a crevice and illuminate a corner, or use a global light surface. Maybe you could turn off the global light, something like turn it off. All right, and do something very interesting with only one positional light in the scene. Or you could actually turn off your positional light and see what you can do with a light map. All right, see what you can do. So sometimes just using one light source type, global, positional, or light map, you can create an entire scene with just one light source. Mandelbulb starts up when you first turn it on. When you first launch it, it will start with a global light assigned to light source, light layer number 1, but you're not stuck with that. You can turn that off. And you can add lights, you can turn them off, turn them on. You can have your entire scene just be one positional light. You can have your entire scene be one light map, or a combination of all of the above. So have fun with it, and play it and try it. Hey, thanks for all who joined me in this live stream. I hope you learned something from it. We'll do more of these types of live stream. We'll keep learning Mandelbulb until we have it mastered. All right. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next live stream. You take care.